In 1944, Hitler's army controlled the whole of Western Europe. When the American, British, Canadian and Free French forces landed on the beaches in Normandy, the invasion would lead to the liberation of northern France and ultimately bring an end to Hitler's regime. The date that the invasion was launched, June the 6th, would become the celebrated and legendary D-Day and be remembered as the main event of 1944. D-Day, the day on which the invasion of Normandy was to begin, was originally set for June the 5th, 1944. However, in early June, bad weather set in, and Allied Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower was faced with postponing the invasion for a full month, when both the moon and tides would once again be suitable for aircraft navigation and beach landings. At a vital meeting on June the 5th, Eisenhower's chief meteorologist forecast a brief improvement in the weather the next day. Eisenhower ordered the invasion to proceed. Allied forces had been rehearsing their roles for D-Day for months leading up to the invasion. The British divisions had been under intensive training since 1942, and the American ones since 1943. Meanwhile, intensive logistics had prepared almost 6,500 ships and landing craft, which would land nearly 200,000 vehicles and 600,000 tons of supplies in the first 3 weeks of the operation. In the lead up to D-Day, British and US Air Forces bombed key objectives including rail centers, bridges, German airfields and military bases. The air campaign isolated the invasion area from the rest of France and also served as a deception operation. 2/3 of the bombs were dropped outside the invasion area in an attempt to persuade the Germans that the landings would take place further south. Eisenhower had decided that D-Day would commence with airborne units landing after midnight under the full moon. When the aircraft carrying US paratroopers approached the Normandy drop zones, they encountered thick cloud cover. The poor visibility and German defense led to many casualties. Some paratroopers drowned upon landing in flooded river plains. In the early hours of the morning, a massive air and naval bombardment opened up, and at dawn the amphibious landings began. The landings took place at 5 code-named beaches: Omaha, Juno, Gold, Sword, and Utah. Omaha was the most heavily fortified beach, and when the American 1st Division landed there, they encountered the best of the German coast divisions, the 352nd. 3,000 of 34,000 American troops were killed or injured as they waded ashore, most in the first few hours. At the water's edge of Juno Beach, the Canadian forces also faced strong resistance. 50% of the first wave of troops became casualties. Landings at Gold and Sword beaches encountered slightly less opposition, while an error in the landing position at Utah Beach worked in the Allies' favor as the troops came ashore on the lightly defended Victor sector further southeast than planned. The British infantry who came ashore at Sword Beach were charged with taking the city of Caen, but failed to reach this ambitious objective before the end of D-Day. The city would remain in German hands until the battle for Caen 1 month later. The 50th Infantry Division that came ashore at Gold Beach had advanced almost to the outskirts of Bayeux by the end of the day, while the Canadians that landed at Juno Beach penetrated over 15 kilometers inland. By the end of D-Day, 150,000 Allied soldiers had landed in Normandy, making it the biggest single-day invasion of all time. Hitler's hold on Western Europe had been breached. By the end of August, northern France would be liberated, and the invading forces reorganized to drive into Germany and bring an end to the Nazi regime. D-Day was a triumph of intelligence, coordination, and planning, and it would be remembered as the main event of 1944.